Hey all, as I promised in my post-crisis Superman video, today I'll be talking about the various amped versions of post-crisis Superman, from the Rao and Theta state to Superman Blue and Red. I didn't cover them in my previous video because I consider these states to be amplifications beyond Superman's regular powers. If you want to look at what the Man of Steel is normally capable of, check out my video, The True Strength of Post-Crisis Superman. But for now, this is Post-Crisis Superman at his most powerful. The Rao and Theta states are the ultimate extensions of two abstract Kryptonian martial arts, Torquasm Rao and Torquasm Vo, respectively. Torquasm Rao allows one to access their inner self, separating it from their physical body, giving them a wider sense of the universe as a whole. The Man of Steel initially thought that this was a power that could only be accessed or learned by Kryptonians, but Lois Lane was able to achieve it as well. So it seems to be more of a state of enlightenment than anything biological. Combining this with his other combat discipline, Torquasm Vo, Superman was able to counteract and see through a kind of illusionary mind hacks effect created by the Deceiver, and even allowed him to see the psychic energy behind the attack itself. At the peak of this martial art, one enters the Rao state, an existence that not only gives the user a greater and more profound understanding of the universe, but also separates them astrally from their physical forms. Whilst in this state, even Lois Lane was able to travel to where Superman was in the Phantom Zone, which is an outer-versal distance away, nearly instantaneously. See my Explaining the DC Multiverse video for more informations on locations within the Godsphere like the Phantom Zone, Hell, and Apocalypse. She was later able to travel to Hell as well, which should be a similar distance away. Using this same technique, Superman could also overcome and cure himself of kryptonite poisoning, although to be fair, this didn't seem like the kind of thing he would be capable of doing in combat. If Torquasm Rao is the spiritual side of things, it wouldn't be wrong to say that Torquasm Vo is the Kryptonian mental martial art. Torquasm Vo allows its user to enter something known as the Theta state. In its most basic form, the Theta state hones Superman's mind into the perfect weapon, putting him into a hyper-calm, hyper-aware mindset that allows for perfect control during combat. Even this basic state was enough for Superman to discover the mystery behind Hal Jordan's Spectre, something that even Martian Manhunter was incapable of doing, utilizing his own mind-related powers. However, Superman eventually improved this ability, learning to expand the territory of the Theta state, forcing his opponent and those nearby into the Theta state as well, creating what is essentially a mental battle. Resisting this effect seems to be based more on how proficient you are with things like the Theta state, as opposed to something like willpower, mental fortitude, or other conventional resistances to mind hacks. It's more about being zen and focused than just berserking out of it, basically. He was able to create an illusion for the Eradicator to fight using this, and even engaged in a direct mental battle with Chem-El, an ancient Kryptonian mind that should be an expert in these sorts of engagements. During this fight, we even see that Chem-El praises Superman for his talent in the Theta state, going as far to say that he has an immense natural talent for it. This technique was perfect for taking on what is perhaps post-crisis Superman's most powerful adversary, Dominus. Dominus has the power to alter realities by taking your very thoughts and shaping him to his own liking. He is an incredibly powerful Lord of Order, surpassing even Kismet. Kismet herself is the being who separates the Lords of Order and Chaos, illuminating the pathways for both. She's the embodiment of either an 11th dimensional or 12 and a third dimensional universe, and yet she was easily sealed away by Dominus. However, even this incredibly casual, impressive feat doesn't really emphasize how strong Dominus really is, as he was able to create his own Phantom Zone, which, as I mentioned earlier and in my DC Multiverse video, is an outer-versal structure. Superman was still able to tassel with Dominus despite his insanely powerful reality warping as a direct result of the Theta state. Firstly, it allowed Superman to give exactly the thoughts he wanted to Dominus, and also used it to manipulate Dominus into using his powers as Superman desired. He forced Dominus into the mental arena of the Theta state, shattering his old mindscape and negating his attempts to lock Superman inside a giant kryptonite crystal. In the Theta state, Superman seemed to be aware of other variations of himself, and was even directly able to utilize their power. First, turning into Silver Age Superman, then adapting up to Kingdom Come Superman, and finally, turning into Superman 1,000,000, something he should be completely unaware of as it doesn't happen for, well, 1,000,000 years. Even this form would eventually be surpassed, leaving us with the post-crisis Superman that we see today. He would eventually defeat Dominus by having him accidentally create a Phantom Zone projector, which he would then use, trapping Dominus within his own self-made illusionary prison. Trapped within the Phantom Zone of an already illusionary reality, Dominus would have no one to use his powers on to escape his fate, leaving him isolated there forever in a prison of his own design. Next up is the strangely powerful Superman Blue. Now, to be completely honest, I don't entirely understand how Superman actually achieved this state. One of the databooks seemed to suggest that after the sun was destroyed by a Sun Eater, his body adapted to using a different form of energy, but I couldn't really find anything to corroborate this explicitly within the actual comics. It just seems like he gets a small static shock from Lois Lane's sweater, and this activates Superman Blue for some reason. In this state, he was an intangible being of essentially pure energy. At first, he couldn't really control these powers, and couldn't even fly with them, but through a combination of his willpower and a specially crafted suit, he was finally able to utilize them to their fullest. For some reason, I never really see anyone talk about this variant of Superman, despite how wildly powerful it clearly is. As Superman Blue, he was stated to be faster and stronger than he ever was, as well as gaining several new abilities. He was easily capable of taking out Wonder Woman in one hit using his intangibility and power over kinetic energy, redirecting the force of her attack. He could directly contend with Brainiac 13, who is said to be a ravager of timelines and holds dominion over an entire universe's space and time. Mr. Mixie would even go as far as to resurrect an amped Doomsday, known as Bada Bing Bada Boomsday, to combat this new blue Superman. Not only is Bada Bing Bada Boomsday stronger than the Doomsday that he had previously fought, but he was also made from fifth-dimensional magic, something that Superman would be conventionally weak or vulnerable to. However, Superman was still shown as being capable of taking on this monster, only being unable to defeat it as a result of Mixie accidentally recreating the plot elements of the death of Superman, as well as his bigger, badder Doomsday, meaning that Superman would have to go into a death-like state again if he wanted to defeat him, because that is how the story played out in his initial fight with Doomsday. This basically just means that Superman Blue could have defeated Bada Bing Bada Boomsday if it wasn't for Mixie's plot hacks, meaning that he couldn't resolve the story in that way. Later on, we even see that the aforementioned Kismet wants the power that Superman Blue can utilize for herself, implying that it's already beyond her extensive 11th or 12th dimensional power. She also refers to this power as quantum magic, something that appeared in Hellblazer being utilized by the quantum wizard Richie. Richie could use this power to travel through the 5th dimension, reaching outerversal realms like Limbo, and taking over the body of a powerful demon known as Nagal with it. We also see that Superman's claim that he is faster than he ever was is no joke, as it's stated that not only is he faster than Impulse, but also that he could reach the Source Wall, which is at the edge of creation itself, instantly using this speed. He was even seemingly compared to the new god Light Ray, and was considered a good replacement for him in this regard. And considering Light Ray is pretty much the Flash of the new gods, you gotta find this impressive. On top of this increased speed and power, This Blue Superman was also granted the ability to manipulate energy in nearly all its forms. He seems to be a master of energy manipulation in general. He was somewhat able to resist his life force being drained by the Millennium Guard in this state as a result of his willpower, and could alter the energy that his body was composed of, allowing it to become one with some kind of magical device. Inside this device, he found the screaming souls of 1 billion individuals, and was able to not only draw strength from this, but also wrap his will around it, overpowering this collective consciousness and returning every single soul back to their bodies, freeing them. He was also able to adjust his own energy wavelength to bring other phased characters back into the regular tangible reality, and in a fight with an energy-absorbing monster, he could drain it of its energy by spinning around it. On 2 occasions, Superman Blue's absorption powers were directly shown to bypass even the abilities of Parasite, a strange being whose entire nature revolves around the absorption of energy. Parasite has drained numerous entities, including Martian Manhunter, Base Superman, and Aztec's limitless 4D energy. Even Kismet's energy was tapped into by Parasite, and yet he still can't stand up to the energy absorption powers of Superman Blue. This energy manipulation also seems to come with some kind of extrasensory perception that allows Superman Blue to see souls and characters who are phased into other dimensions. He can even directly manipulate the electrical impulses within another person's body, like when he prevented Kyle Rayner from using his Green Lantern powers, when even the anti-life equation was unable to prevent him from doing so. Superman Blue was willing to perform a similar feat against the Joker, even though the Joker was amped by the Philosopher's Stone at the time. The Philosopher's Stone being an artifact whose power comes directly from the source and transcends space and time. Later, he was shown to be capable of easily escaping from an ambient matter prison, which both existed in one place and another. This prison was like a wave throughout space-time, and was described as a 4th-dimensional revolving door, essentially meaning that Superman Blue would have had to travel beyond time to escape it in the first place. He could also create a construct of constantly agitated molecules to trap Inkling, despite his ability to walk through solid matter. Against Asmodel, he was able to interfere with and disrupt his subsonic attacks that were said to be capable of destroying all matter, and was even directly resisting the effects of the light of heaven, something that only the purest souls can withstand. On top of all of this, Superman Blue has phenomenal regen, even allowing him to regenerate after he was turned into radio waves. This even carries over to his normal base form, as when Brainiac 13 digitized him, he was able to reform as Superman Blue, with a little help from Brainiac 5. Even after being torn apart into thousands of different pieces, he not only regenerated, but also created Superman Red as well. We don't really know much about Superman Red, other than that his powers seem to be similar to Superman Blue, and that the existence of their duality was breaking down the laws of nature, and essentially awoke the Millennium Giants as a result. Now, I want to talk about something that I've mentioned in several of my other videos, that being boom tubes, or the boom tube amp more specifically. This effect seems to be something that confuses a lot of people. Boom tubes essentially just adjust your size to wherever you happen to be going. Now, I got a ton of comments from people saying, boom tubes don't make you stronger, they just make you bigger. So I feel like this needs some additional explanation. The God Sphere and its consistent realms of New Genesis and Apocalypse, among others, completely dwarf the regular universe entirely, and we actually see this quite directly with Libra, when he taps into his power siphon device and quite literally outgrows the multiverse appearing on Apocalypse. Additionally, Darkseid simply falling towards the multiverse was enough to cover it with his shadow. Travelling to Apocalypse with a boom tube essentially makes a normal human being significantly larger than the universe. So I'll ask you now, which is more powerful? A normal-sized human being, or a human being the size of a universe? Hopefully, the answer to that question is obvious. Now, this enlarging boom tube effect logically would be compounded even further if the being affected is already well beyond the capabilities of a normal human, like Superman, who is already extremely powerful. So what can this Superman of outerversal size accomplish? Much like the normal-sized Superman can fight avatars of Darkseid, this larger Superman can fight an outerversal-sized Darkseid as well. On this scale, Darkseid at his peak has been shown capable of affecting the Source directly on numerous occasions in his battles with Orion, and in one of his fights with Highfather, he accidentally destroyed the Source Wall, a structure that is durable enough to contain the Source. Later, we also see that Tachyon, a being who is the embodiment of the Source itself, thinks that Darkseid is beyond his power. And that makes sense, because Darkseid was capable of creating a being known as Stain, whose powers rivaled Tachyon. But despite all of this, he still gets routinely beaten down in his encounters with a holding back, suppressed boom tube Superman. Even Orion, the being fated to ultimately destroy Darkseid, struggles when it comes to fighting this version of the Man of Steel, with Scott Free even calling them evenly matched. Superman has himself entered and survived the Source. Highfather would go on to say that escaping the Source is impossible, only for Superman to then do it anyway, smashing a hole in the Source wall in the process. Along with Orion, Boomtube Superman was able to fight Sivar, a being who was going to destroy all of existence merely by dancing. Now, I'm going to talk about something that is a bit controversial, that being Death of the New Gods. This is a comic that some people consider non-canon, as a result of Grant Morrison calling the story apocryphal. But this doesn't actually mean it's not canon. It just means that it should be taken as a legend or myth, something which has some level of truth to it. This is especially reinforced considering that Final Crisis, Grant Morrison's big masterpiece, is intended to be a continuation of Death of the New Gods. It just seems like Grant Morrison accidentally created a bunch of inconsistencies when he wrote Final Crisis, and this is his way of trying to remedy his own mistakes, which is just unfair to Death of the New Gods and its authors. Additionally, Death of the New Gods clearly elaborates on cosmological structures like the time stream that we see continued in DC today, and so it doesn't make any real sense to just exclude it entirely. Boomtube Superman has some vastly more impressive feats in this story than we would usually see him perform, which might make it seem inconsistent, but there is actually some precedent for this. For one thing, we know that Superman always holds back subconsciously, to the point where a weakened fragment of Superman was able to one-shot all of his previous villains with no effort. But we can even go beyond this and look at another story, called Superman, the Dark Side. Now, Darkseid Superman is an alternate Superman who was raised on Apokolips instead of Earth, eventually becoming Darkseid's ultimate weapon. This Superman would be powered by the flames of Apokolips instead of sunlight. He was easily a match for Orion and Highfather, and was implied to be stronger than Darkseid himself. Darkseid Superman would end up on Earth eventually, however, where it was revealed that the solar radiation of Earth's sun made him more powerful than the flames of Apokolips ever could. We see something similar with the God of Strength Superman, who was subjected to and absorbed the fires of Apokolips, only for it to ultimately make him weaker, not stronger, allowing Wonder Woman to defeat him. So even a weakened, inexperienced Boomtube Superman that Darkseid Superman is implied to be stronger than Darkseid and can directly combat Orion, who should be his superior anyway. Basically what this means is, Superman can subconsciously access greater reserves of strength if the need should arise, and this applies to his Boomtube variant as well. which is why it shouldn't be surprising when he can fight characters like scot-free utilizing the anti-life equation. Even a character like Infinity Man, who was able to kill hundreds of thousands of new gods, and whose power utterly dwarfed Orion's, was going blow for blow with this Superman. This same Infinity Man would then be shown to grow stronger than scot-free using the anti-life, and would even merge with the anti-life entity itself, essentially reuniting the two split halves of the source within himself, becoming one with the true source. But even this massive outburst of power was only enough to temporarily incapacitate Superman. The anti-life entity on its own was significantly stronger than Darkseid, requiring the aid of Dr. Fate, Etrigan, Highfather, and Orion to combat it together. I should note that the main reason that the anti-life entity was so much more powerful than the Source is mostly just because it can actually do things like fight or use its power, unlike the Source, which for most of its life was essentially just an energy reserve. Darkseid would then empower himself using the Soulfire experiment, infusing himself with the hundreds of thousands of souls from the new gods that Infinity Man had killed, each soul making him tens of times stronger. Now there are two ways to interpret this. One could say that, oh, they all collectively, 100,000 times 10, oh, he got millions of times stronger. But another way to take this is that for every soul, he got another 10 times stronger, including the past soul, which would make him 10 to the 100,000 times more powerful. You interpret that as you will. In any case, this immensely more powerful Darkseid is then shown to be even stronger than this true source empowered Infinity Man, only for an all-out power last-ditch effort BoomTube Superman to smash a hole through him anyway. Darkseid would recover from this attack, and he was still stronger than the Man of Steel, but the fact that BoomTube Superman could hurt him at all is insane. I mean, even Superman was surprised at his own power, and basically performed this feat accidentally. It's even possible that Superman might be capable of even greater should he truly unleash the power that he actually holds. Anyway, that's it for this video. Give a like and subscribe if you enjoyed it. Maybe next time I'll talk about Rebirth Superman or something like that. The Doctor Strange video is still in the works. Honestly, just struggling to read the hundreds of classic comic issues that are older than I am in order to put the video together. So maybe that'll be a while. Looking into doing a Spawn video as well, so anticipate that. In any case, that'll be it for now, and I will see you all in the next one.